Okay, hey everybody, this is our midpoint week. Let's talk about Chapter 7. Remember, we have a midterm exam that is going to be due on next Saturday, July 13th. You have all day to take it. If you need any accommodations, let me know as far as if you have a letter from student services with your disability. Make sure you let me know again, even if you had previously let me know. I mean, I get a million emails. So just kind of, send me a friendly reminder if you need extended time or if you have a conflict, we can work on it. Look out in the next couple of days for another video. We'll do a review video, and then I can schedule a time on Wednesday, probably around 7 our time, 7 San Diego time, um, with regards to maybe a review. If that would help, we could do it on Zoom, and then I can record it and upload it for people that might not be able to attend. So we'll look at Wednesday for that. So I'll do a regular video with a review on YouTube, and then I will have a live session on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Let me maybe let you guys know on Monday. I'm going to be out of town for the rest of the day and coming back tomorrow. So I might not get some of your stuff graded until tomorrow, but just please be patient with me as I get the grades in and canvas with some of the wonkiness that we have with the system. Now we can work through that. So let's go ahead and talk about Chapter 7, and we're going to look at a liberal democracy much like ours and talk about representation. We're going to focus on a few areas throughout the world. We're obviously going to compare a lot to the United States, but then we're going to also look at parliamentary systems and systems that, kind of are evident throughout our world here. If we kind of look at this first point where we have a majoritarian representation in our system, very much like what we have here in the U.S., we base all of our things off of plurality, which has always been a hard word for me to say. Plurality, simply who gets the most votes. All right. We can also talk about proportional representation, where representation is chosen in proportion to votes. So, say for example, if we wanted to make the United States, specifically the House of Representatives, a proportional representation, we would divide up the 435 seats that we have up in the Congress, and as a nation, we would vote, and parties would be voted on, and the parties would decide per proportional representation who goes to Congress. So we wouldn't necessarily be voting for a person, we'd be voting for a party. So we have 435 seats. Say the Democrats win 60% of that, they'll get 60% of 435 in the House. That's just a basic, kind of a really simple example to give. If we look at England, the UK, they have the House of Lords, which is a little bit more prestigious and can be, kind of considered to be an equivalent to the Senate here. And then we have the House of Commons, which is elected based off of proportional representation. We do have some states that do proportional representation in their legislatures. Nebraska is an example of a unicameral House. We're going to talk about voting, political parties, elected officials, single-member plurality, which is very, very similar to what we do in the U.S., where the country's divided, like I said, into 435 districts, and whoever wins a plurality in most instances in that area will be the representative. So single-member plurality, we talked about that, first past the post, winner take all. Sometimes this can lead to overrepresentation, as we see here in the United States. We are overly represented by the Democrats and the Republicans, and in a sense, if we talk about third-party politics, it doesn't really exist here in the U.S., even though the Libertarian Party is a pretty popular party here in the U.S., but they're really, really not going to make any grounds nationwide. And if you take the 102 class, you're going to talk about something called ballot access, where some of these groups don't have ballot access. They're not on the ballots in all 50 states, therefore you can't have total representation. So, proportional representation is used in about 70 countries. Voters don't vote for individual politicians, but instead they vote for parties, like I mentioned earlier. Here's an example in Israel where we have the different parties and how they're assigned by representation. If we look at single member plurality as compared to the proportional representation, Congress can see themselves representing only a territorial constituency. Why would somebody from Texas who represents maybe a border town, or no, this is not a good example, but maybe in a northern part of Texas, be concerned about issues in California? That can lead to fragmented politics, as we see here. We also have two round systems, which are in kind of majoritarian systems. If there is an election, and we'll see this a lot on the local level. If no candidate receives a majority of votes, the top two vote getters go and face off each other. We have a primary election here in the United States, and then we have a general election where the people who win the primaries, and it's a little bit kind of wonky here in California because of some of the laws that we have with regards to elections and nominations. But for the most part, if we have two people running for the same office, whoever gets the plurality of votes in their party will receive the nomination, and those people go off and face in the general election. We also have something called alternative rank candidates, where you rank your candidates per preference, and then it is assigned a number. For those of you that are sports fans, look at a good example of this would be maybe a voting for the MVP, who have MVP for the league. Sometimes the sports writers will pick one person number one, a second person number two, and a third person number three. And they'll assign a numerical value to that position. So say, for instance, the number one vote getter gets 10 points. So whoever receives the most points overall will win. I think that's a good example of an alternative vote system. Now, when we kind of talk about quotas here in voting, should we have a more representative view of Congress here in the United States? Look at some of these figures here. Women are 53% of the population, but I think we only have 118 members of Congress, which isn't representative of what the population is. So there's kind of some kind of controversy with that. Let's see. Talk about gerrymandering. Some of the things that go on in that, and how the parties work together, and what parties do. Make sure you look at this section. And some of the things that come out of that, and how parties are very representative of what maybe not so much what the concerns of what the citizens have as opposed to what the party has. Duverger's Law, make sure you look at Duverger's Law and some of the systems of that and some of the ramifications that come out of that. Two-party systems, talks about the U.S., which we already went over. So make sure you look at some of these things. Also know that, there's kind of the basics of a 102 class, the presidential system that we have here in the U.S., and some of the examples that other parts of the world that has a presidential system where we have separated branches, judicial, legislative, and executive, and, some of the separation of powers. So we also have semi-presidential systems that I want you to look at. And when we kind of look at, I put in information about Mexico. I actually got to change the current president. The current president is AMLO, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Sorry if I butchered that. But it's kind of like what we have here in the United States, since we're a neighbor of the South. So also some votes of some instances of parliamentary functions where we have proportional representation, and in some instances, they elect the executive. The legislative will elect the executive, and the executive has to kind of be subservient to what the legislative wants, much like what's going on with Brexit and Theresa May and the House of Commons, where the House of Commons the party in power will elect the prime minister, and the prime minister is in charge of what that party wants. Some, kind of things about parliamentary representation. Okay, also have things about Ireland in here. Go ahead and take a look. And also look at this link here from the CIA handbook, where will show you what some of the things are and how that affects us. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. This is just an illustration. Make sure you look at those things that I told you about, and then we will go from there, and keep an eye out for a review video. Okay, I will talk to you guys soon.